Welcome to the Paul Pate Podcast, kiddos. Today's broadcast is brought to you by the Rogue River Artists Association. It's a group of artists in Rockford, Michigan, of which I'm part of. My guest today, Alan Rosas, is a part of that group. That's kind of how we came across each other. They are, if you're an artist in the area, it would behoove you to join the group. They're great. There are all kinds of artists, from watercolors to oil paintings, some really great artists. And we put on 3 shows a year. Art in the Park is our flagship show at downtown Rockford. So check it out at rogueriverartists.org. Today's podcast is also brought to you by paulpate.com. That is my website where you can find out all about my artwork and my movies and this podcast. So check that out when you have a minute. I'm sure you'll be thrilled. Anyway, let's get on with the podcast. Alan Rosas, welcome. How are you today?
Well, I'm great. It's good to talk to you this way. I haven't done a podcast on Skype before, so that's interesting.
Interesting is good. Thank you. Is very generous. So you are a sculptor, among other things, but I
have a degree in drawing, of all things, an MFA in drawing. But I persuaded the people at the university that my Kinetic Sculptures, which use motors and develop smoke and so on, were drawings, and that was the best con game that I've run in a long time, and it worked out for me. They gave me the papers, and I was qualified to teach, and I did that for a while. So
you taught at
I taught at Kendall College of Art and Design for a year full time, and I was adjunct faculty for 3 or 4 years. Taught a bunch of classes, figure drawing and introduction to illustration, and a lot of drawing classes. Drawing is my big thing. It always has been, but I love to tinker, and I've gotten into kinetic sculpture that uses smoke.
Right.
I think smoke is a very interesting material. I mean, it's very ephemeral. Of course, it disappears right away, but you can see it and you can smell it. So it's very sensual, and it's also threatening, which is, I think, is it's a compelling kind of thing to put in a sculpture. If the sculpture smokes, you look at it, and you look at it with your irises dilate, and you're really looking at it carefully because it's smoking, and it's part of that animal part of your brain. First of all, the thing moves, and anything that moves is bound to attract your attention because you're hardwired to respond to that as either prey animal or whatever, but
right.
You're hardwired to respond to a movement, and then when it smokes on top of it, it's just.
But for those people that are listening that can't see it, one of them is of one of your teachers from when you were a kid, right?
They're all memories. Memory is a very odd thing because I know my memories are wrong. I mean, the things you remember from grade school have to be wrong, right? So, but you do the best you can, and what you've got is what you've got. That's who you are. So I had a teacher die during class in grade school. This was an art teacher in Burton Elementary. Was on the top floor, the 3rd floor of Burton Elementary. Her name was Mrs. Wiesenauer. I still remember her name. And she was this stern-looking, kind of sourpuss woman who ran a very tight ship, and we had to clean up and all of that. And one class I was making actually a marionette, sawing it out with a little coping saw, and she got up and left the room. And the ladies' room for the teachers was just around the corner from the art room, and so I knew she'd be right back. She every once in a while used the ladies' room, and then I saw the clock move, and this was bad because in 5 minutes, we would have to line up in a straight line and go to our next class, and she wasn't there. And so all the kids were looking at the door, and we cleaned up even without instruction. We were kind of afraid. And pretty soon, 10 minutes later, when we were supposed to be in the next class, another teacher came and got us and led us to the next class. We only found out the next day that she went into the ladies' room and died, and they found her on the floor in there. And I guess it was really kind of her. I mean, she didn't want to die in front of all these students, So she went around the corner and died. But anyway, I made this sculpture, and it's Mrs. Wiesenauer, and it has a triangular plinth in the middle of it. And there are 3 sides on this thing, and I have a little motor that rotates a third, a third, and a third. And each time, a new face of Mrs. Wiesenauer appears. First, she's sitting upright in her usual stern self. The second one, she looks kind of afraid, and the third one, she's a skeleton, And so it's the kind of celebration of this memory of the poor lady who died during class. But kinetic sculpture can do things like that, which is change as you watch them, which I think is always fun.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating. And then another one is of your landlady when you were a kid.
Oh yeah, that was Mrs. Shook.
Mrs. Shook.
Yeah.
And I love the story about about you and your friend in Detroit, because to me, I mean, I've always been interested in social justice and race relations and things like that. I don't know, I think it's one of the biggest problems that we have in our country, and one of the most important things that we can think about as people. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it looks like we have a connection problem. Oh, there it's gone. Okay, we're back.
Yeah, I know. Every once in a while it seems to be cutting out. But anyway, I think it's one of the most important things that we can think about as individuals. And so your story is funny, but also kind of heart-wrenching. And then you made a sculpture that kind of, I love it when you tell the story. So
well, Mrs. Shook owned the Wallace Hotel. I grew up in the basement of the Wallace Hotel, which was a 4-story hotel right in downtown Detroit on 2nd Avenue, just a block from Cass, right near Peterborough. And my mother was a maid there, and so at part of her earnings was that we got this basement apartment downstairs, was the plumber and the guy who fixed the electricity and so on, and the maid, and so I was the son of the maid. And Charles McKnight was a black kid and a very talented boy. We would go sketching together. He didn't have any paper, he didn't have anything, and I managed to have a few of those supplies, and I would share, and we'd go out sketching and so on. And every once in a while, I'd bring him back, and when we'd go into the Wallace Hotel, Mrs. Shook actually stopped me one time and said, "Do not bring that boy through the front door." And I was just confused. What are you talking about? We don't want people thinking that black people live in this hotel. You have to bring him in through the back door, And I thought, this is crazy, but we did that. I mean, we were just kids. But when you're that age and you're friends with people, and this whole racial thing is not developed. I mean, I just thought of him as he was just a really neat kid. He was a head taller than I was, so I always felt safe when I was with him. And he was really talented, and he loved to draw, and we shared that, But anyway, I made this sculpture of Mrs. Shook. She used to sit in the lobby of the Wallace Hotel in her big overstuffed chair, and right next to her was this enormous Philco radio with the tuning eye, that cat's eye. As you tune, the eye got bigger and smaller, And she would sit there and watch everybody come in the hotel and leave the hotel, and she'd smoke, and she'd just sit there and smoke. She was this big fat lump of a woman in a print dress with stockings rolled down on her kind of bowling pin legs. And so I made a sculpture of her sitting in that chair with a big Philco radio and the stairs going up, and I motorized it. and she brings a cigarette up to her mouth. It has an LED on the end that's glowing, and I made her jaw go up and down with a motor. And there's a funnel coming through the back of her head, and I put triglyceride, which is a kind of sugar, and there's a little heater in the bottom of the jaw, and as her jaw comes up, it pushes the smoke out of her mouth, one puff with each movement. So she's sitting there smoking in the Wallace Hotel, and so that was kind of my image of her, the evil Mrs. Shug.
And one question for you: Does Charles McKnight? Did you keep in touch with him, or do you?
I did not. You know, we were in really different circumstances after a while. I ended up going to it. This was before high school. We were friends, and we went to different high schools because he was just all the cards were stacked against Charles McKnight. I mean, I had books in my house. He had nothing in his house, and you know, I was a good student. I read and had good vocabulary and all of that. So I was all set, and they sent me to a very good high school, a prestigious. I didn't know it was a special high school, except that they invited me, and I thought that's odd that you get invited. And I was so I went to that school, and he went to not such a good school, and we didn't see each other anymore. And so we came apart. I did meet him one other time. After high school, this high school was so good. They sent you specialized, and I did a portfolio of designs. I was very interested in. They taught you design at the school, and they sent it all over the country free of charge. This high school, all you had to do is write the colleges that you wanted to see it. And so I put Pratt Institute, I put Cooper Union, I put Art Center, you know, all the good schools. And I got this letter one day. After high school, I got a job at the Jam Handy organization, which was an animation house in Detroit, big animation house. And I was painting owls' wings, 8 hours a day for the motor company. And I got this letter one day, and it was from Pratt Institute, and said, "We've seen your portfolio. You should stop your portfolio now, because we're giving you a scholarship, and if you keep it going, other people will be deprived of scholarships at other schools." And I thought, "Oh, this is terrific!" You know, it's like I have this letter in my hand, and I jumped on the bus and I went downtown. By that time, my mother was working downtown as an accountant in this detective agency, and I thought I have to show her this letter, you know. And I got off the bus downtown, and I'm running down the street, and I'm passing a shoe store, and I happen to glance in the shoe store, and there is Charles McKnight. I haven't seen him for years, and he's arranging shoes in the window.
Oh.
And he saw me, you know, and he came out, and I had this letter in my hand. That the letter actually meant, "You're getting out. You know, you're going places. You have this ticket to get out of poverty," is what this letter meant. And I kind of put the letter down, and I said, "Hi, Charles, how you been?" You know, and well, I'm supporting my brothers and sisters. I had this job in arranging shoes in the shoe store, and well, gee, it's good to see you. You know, I didn't have the heart to go any further with it, and it kind of brought me down quite a bit. And I continued my journey, and I showed it to my mother, and it all worked out for me. But I'm sure Charles never made it out. I mean, he probably got little menial jobs for the rest of his life.
Oh, man.
Yeah, things like that happen.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
Well, he had no way of getting out. I mean, he was stuck, and that's part of this race relation thing. I mean, with so many cards stacked against you, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way to overcome that kind.
Yeah. Do you? Which I always think somebody's watching out for me. Somebody bigger than a lot smarter than the rest of us. Do you believe in guardian angels?
Well, no, I can't say I do, but I do believe in playing the odds, and I do appreciate that I've had really good fortune. I'm the right race and the the right gender, and I had the right parent and all of that stuff, that helped me get through.
Mm-hmm.
If you have too many of those things against you, you're really stuck, and I don't know what you
Right.
can do about it.
Yeah. I've had in my life guardian angels.
Hmm.
Like, just, and what I mean by that is just like people that
Oh,
I'm just, that give me that special feeling, like of, um, like like somebody's watching out for me, and they,
mm-hmm.
I'm not superstitious or religious or anything like that, but um, it's just a feeling I get every once in a while, from certain
Yeah.
people. Like I have a cousin who's just, when I'm around her, she's just makes me feel at ease, and
Mm.
like I've been there before, And you're
Mm.
one of those people for me. When I first met you, I was like, this is just cool. And then we sat down and drew a couple pictures together, and that was really special for me. Um, so
Yeah, I
thanks.
enjoy that too.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, artists can have relationships with each other that are pretty special and intimate. This whole business of sharing, you have your talent, you have your talent, and you get to compare and enjoy each other's work, and you see into somebody pretty far when you watch them work on art, and I like that about being an artist.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's not a lot of words exchanged, but yet you feel like you're communicating at a different level or something.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's interesting. Um, I'm gonna so I'm gonna try to edit in the videos I have of you describing that those sculptures.
Okay.
That's really neat the way you talk about them too. I mean, great storytelling there,
Oh,
and
good.
so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well,
And
it becomes a story because these things happen to you long before. I mean, so long ago that I'll bet if I went to the Wallace Hotel now, it's probably gone. But if I
right,
found it, it would look completely different to me than I remember it.
right, a lot smaller.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Well, it's great stories, and then to see your
yeah.
sculptures as part of that story is really neat. Um, so the way that I met you was I wanted to get together with some people and do portraits, like live portraits of people, because we had done that years ago in the town where we live, Rockford, and there was a group, and I don't know whatever happened to them. And so you suggested to get in touch with the Artists Association, and then you suggested that I just become a member of it,
Yeah.
which was really I had never done anything like that before, and now I've had a great experience with it. It's a lot of fun. I love the people there, um, and just sitting around talking about art. Is like one of my favorite things to do. So that's what we do. So that's great for me.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. I think we have a little bit of a sales job to do. We have to talk the other members into doing some, let's say, portrait sessions with a model, so that a bunch of us can get together and
Yeah,
we'll each chip in $5 and hire a model to sit on a chair for a couple of hours, and we'll each
right.
have at it.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
that
that
would
would
be
be fun.
awesome. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know how many portrait artists we have in our group, but
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them are afraid. I mean,
yeah, that's
they
another thing.
find the draw from pictures and from photos and put it up on their easel and kind of copy. But the idea of drawing from life is, uh, well, that's different.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Is I've never been very shy, so um, I like talking about art, and I don't mind showing mine off, even when I'm out of my league. Um, but a lot of the people in the group, it's more of a private thing. And then when they get something just the way they like it, then they're going to show it off.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not all of them are like that. But I don't know. I don't want to pressure people, but I would like them to come out of their shell a little bit and present art and present their work and even just the stuff that they're working on that isn't finished, or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
I think the other thing is that people want to make some sort of finished product that they feel is special and is done and is it's not a work in progress. They're afraid to show things kind of partway through. I actually like all stages. I like to
right,
see the beginning sketches. In fact, I like the little studies and sketches when I go to the museum that go into the final painting more than I like the final painting. Usually,
well,
you go to the museum and you see, oh, these 5 studies were done before the painting. The 5 studies are, oh, these are terrific. I look at the painting, okay, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's
oh
boring
yeah.
already,
Well, yeah, and my drawings, a lot of times I'll do the sketches, and then I'll do the ink and the coloring over top of it, and the sketch will be gone. And it's always where'd the sketch go? Because this finished drawing looks nothing like the sketch. I like the sketch better, because it's loose and yeah, and I'm sure you've heard the saying that the secret to a great picture is knowing when to stop working on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's the thing about digital is it is an additive process, or can be. I suppose you could save each layer
yeah,
separately and look at them that way, just draw in layers. But it is an additive process, and it's sort of like painting with opaque, oils or gouache or something, where you keep putting more on, and whatever was underneath is gone after a while.
hmm
But
yeah. I've got
yeah,
a
sort of like about pastel is very, very fast, and
yeah,
it you finish a piece in 45 minutes or an hour, and it's pretty much done if you're not working large, and so it's fresh. And what I like about drawing as opposed to painting, which is a more finished kind of work, what I like about drawing is that you see the discovery that the artist makes as he's looking at whatever he's looking at. So you can actually see the discovery, and it's that's the pleasure for me. The artwork, yeah, that's fine, but I love to see the process. The
yeah,
process is so much more fun than the final piece, and because you look at the process and you think, I've done that process. I'm going to do
yeah.
that process some more. It inspires you to get busy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's a great thing about your artwork on your, when I saw all of your artwork at the shows, because a lot of your drawings, you can see all the strokes, the charcoal or the chalk or the different media that you use. You can see you know, the process that you went through, because it's real rough.
Yeah, it's not photography.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah, it's not like realism. It's impressionistic almost.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
really enjoy that. So, and you and your wife is an artist too.
Yeah, she does it's a Polish paper cutting called wycinanki. Uh, it's sort of like the German Scherenschnitte, where you take paper and you cut images out and arrange them. The difference being Polish paper cutting, there's a lot of color involved, and it's also kind of celebratory. There'll be a rooster and a chicken and a pig and this kind of sense of wealth,
Uh,
because if you're a farmer and you have all of these animals, you're wealthy.
I
So there's
got you. I got you.
uh,
Cool.
and so Vishnanki is a kind of celebration of well-being and
Uh,
happiness and bright colors and bright pigs and bright roosters.
yeah, I
It's
I want to share a story about the very first art show that we had in Rockford. You and your wife have a real nice display set up, and then there was my little modest display over here, amongst many other artists. And we spent the day, with a bunch of people coming through, and spent a lot of time sitting around talking or drawing, and there was probably 15 great artists set up in the pavilion there, and I was talking to my wife on the phone, hoping that she would stop by later in the day, and I couldn't wait to see what artist she thought or what artist she was going to like the best, because I was betting that she was going to like your wife's art the best. So when she showed up, I asked her, and she said she picked your wife, and not only that, she said I bought a piece of her art years ago.
Oh.
Which is,
Yeah.
before I had even met my wife, she had bought your wife's artwork. So
Oh yeah, we've been doing that for a long time. So that's cool. Yeah, that's
yeah.
lovely. That's lovely. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun displaying my artwork and having all these people come through town and look at it. That was an intimidating experience for me,
Mm.
but I enjoyed it. And you guys were there, but you're not necessarily going to all the art shows. It's
Yeah, I have never been interested in selling art
okay.
ever, and I just do it. My wife actually got me into it. For a while, we did art shows in the summer. We would do 6 or 7 shows, and I set the tent up and I put up her work and helped her arrange her panels and all that stuff. And I usually I didn't even show anything that I did.
Okay.
I've never been interested in selling my art. But she's been doing it for a long time, and so it's very possible that lots of people have probably purchased little Vichinanki roosters and deer and pigs.
Yeah.
They're all over the place probably. But yeah, I don't know. Making art to sell is sort of changes the art into a craft for me. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but if you're really thinking, oh, will somebody buy this, as opposed to, I need to make this piece of art because I need to make it. Nobody wants to buy my Mrs. Shook smoking a cigarette. I mean, it's kind of it's kind of a weird thing when you come right down to it. Or Mrs. Wiesenauer changing into a skeleton. I mean, nobody wants that in their living room. This is not art that's meant for sale, and that's kind of how I feel about it.
The sculpture with the faces singing or blowing smoke,
Yeah.
or what makes me think they're singing?
I was thinking about carolers who come to
That's
your
right.
door in the wintertime, and they're all singing, and you can see, that's the thing about living in Michigan. It really makes you know you're alive. You can feel the cold on your skin. You can see your breath.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Oh, it's great.
know you're alive because you can see your breath.
Let me tell you what, I would know I'm alive if I was somewhere warm right now where it wasn't snowing.
Well, I don't know. I think that there are times of the year when, well, for instance, suicide is higher because people just forget how precious and what being alive is. Eskimos are less likely to to do away with themselves than people in L.A. who are on hard times. But maybe I'm wrong about that. The point is that so I made a sculpture of a bunch of carolers' faces. They have their mouths open, and they're cast in casting wax. I don't know, there's 12 or 13 of these faces, and they'll have copper tubes that come out of the backs of their heads into a smoke generator. And right now I'm in the process of installing a little piece of tape that will allow them to sing a carol. And when you press the button, smoke comes out of there. There's a bellows that pumps up and down, and it puffs the smoke out of their mouth as the bellows moves. And it's a weird thing. Nobody wants to buy that, but I just had to make it.
I just think that there was some venue somewhere with all of this, these things around would be really, like, I don't know if it'd be in a museum or,
Yeah. I don't know.
I just think it'd be wild. But,
kids love these. When I had my graduate show, I had a lot of these kinetic sculptures in a room all together, and they all were plugged in and they all were working. And it was a very popular room. I mean, people were just parading through, and the kids just loved. That's the other thing. All of these sculptures I have have timers on them, and they force you to participate. You have to reach out and you have to push a button, and then it does something for a set amount of time and then turns itself off.
Right.
So you have to see what the next one is going to do. So you go to the next one and you look for the button. Where's the button? Oh, here's the button over here, and you press the button.
And
then
kids
that
are great. They just go right in and they don't even ask.
Yeah.
They just start pushing buttons. I know my
Yeah, they're
daughter.
looking for the button, and then they have to stand back and see what it does. And it has a fixed time, so you're not really in control of it. It stops by itself at a certain time, and if you want to see it again, you have to push the button again. So it's very interactive, and it forces you to. I have to bring this thing to life with my finger, and that's. I think that's interesting too, forcing people to. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to touch the art. Well, my art, you're supposed to touch one little part of it, the button, and be careful of the hot parts because the smoking machine it generates a good deal of heat. But yeah,
That's cool. You can you can see some more of your art and read about you at rogueriverartists.org. They have a list of artists, Alan Rosas. Is there anywhere else online that we can?
no, it's just same as with sales. I'm not
Yeah,
terribly invested in having other people.
yeah, I got
The
you.
things
That's
I
all
do,
right.
I don't make it for general viewing. I make it because I need to make it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing with me.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I always have fun talking to you. And you've done everything, and you started out in animation, which I'm big into now. That you did that years ago. You're done, been there, done that.
Well,
And,
I wish I did digital animation. I did stuff with Cell and an
Yeah.
Oxbury Master Filmmaker and
yeah,
all of that kind of stuff. And that's so that's really obsolete technology, and it's not done that way anymore.
yeah. Photoshop has a great animation piece to it. If you're ever interested, I can. I don't know.
Yeah, I played with it a little bit. I am interested in it. I will get good at it. I've still got a few years of tinkering to do.
I was going to tell you too. I signed up for a sketchbook class at Kendall.
Oh, cool.
Me and a friend are going to go there on. So I know you guys had asked what.
Yeah.
So we found it's.
Well, that'll be fun.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time since I've done something like that. So I really look forward to that. On my podcast, at the very end, I put all of my guests on an island, and I give them the opportunity to take 5 things. You get one of each of these 5 items, and it's supposed to be like I ask you what the item what you're going to take, kind of a rapid fire thing. So I'm going to put you on a deserted island.
Okay.
And you get one, since it's a deserted island, the first of the 5 things that you get to take one of is dessert.
Oh,
So what dessert would you take onto a deserted island?
well, depends on the temperature because I would take a cherry pie generally, but that wouldn't last very long. So I think maybe a large bag of chocolates that I could eat over a period of time. Recent chocolates. A bag of that would be good. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. If you could take one album or CD or, what would...
That's a hard one. Probably Dave Brubeck, or almost anything of that genre. I like all of his sidemen too, and you got that guy that plays sax for him is wonderful. But yeah, probably a jazz album like that, or maybe Chopin. I like Chopin a lot too.
Okay.
One of the two.
Great. I think you're the first guest that I've had that mentioned jazz. So, how about one book? What would it be?
Probably there is a. Yeah, I have the book right here. Let me grab it. Um, it's a book called The Golden Ratio by Mario Livio. If you haven't read that, it's amazing. You got to read it. Yeah, it'll just keep you. It's about mathematics, but it's written so that it's just thrilling and full of things that an artist would love too, about proportion and ratios and how things relate to each other and go together, and how music relates to shape. And it's called
The Golden Ratio, is that what it's called?
It's called The Golden Ratio.
Oh, I think I've heard about this.
Yeah, it was very popular. I think it was on the New York Times bestseller list for a while.
There it is.
Mario Livio. Yeah, nice book. That's what I would take.
Oh, cool. Isn't the Golden Ratio like, I mean, there's actually a ratio,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Like
sure
3 to
there.
2 or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that?
They sometimes call it the golden mean.
Oh, okay.
3.1, what is it, 1.318. It's one of those numbers that goes on forever like pi does. Yeah. I can draw it with a compass and a ruler, but I can't remember the exact number. But it's not quite 1 to 1.5. But yeah, it's supposed to be the most beautiful shape, and theoretically,
Right.
the Parthenon and all of those buildings are constructed with that ratio in mind.
Right.
Although that's probably not quite true, but that's what they say.
Close. All my drawings are actually comply with the Golden Ratio.
Oh, do they?
Yes.
Cool.
It's just the natural. It's like I was just born like that.
There you go. Well, the old TV sets before they got wider and wider screen were pretty much the Golden Ratio, and now they're not anymore. And I did scratch my head for a while and wonder why they extended it out so wide. And then I realized, oh, I need all my icons on the left so that I can have my Golden Ratio on the piece of paper I'm working with. So it's just extra. It's extra desk space. My Golden Ratio is over here. My icons are over there.
All right. Well, I think we're to number 4, and this is going to be 1 tube of paint. What color?
Probably Payne's gray.
Payne's gray.
Yeah, it's a blue gray. It's a very beautiful, spooky color. If you put a little white with it or water it down, it's a pretty neutral color when it's watered down, and when it's not, it's a dark, not intense, but a very subtle kind of blue. Payne's gray. Yeah.
I like your answers so far because it's as if you've contemplated going to a deserted island and the things you would need.
I was just thinking about all my tubes of paint. Which one would I want to take with me? And that would probably be good.
All right, last one is if you get one tool from your, your tool shed or basement or garage, what's it going to be?
Well, probably an axe, because I'm on a desert island. I have to make firewood and survive, so I'm going to take something that's useful. And I could sculpt with it if I had to, but yeah, an axe.
Cool. Thanks, Alan. I really appreciate you coming on. As always, it's really fun talking to you.
Oh, great. I enjoyed it too.